How could you?
Grandpa didn't think it would be a good idea to tell you, I hedged, trying to get the robe I had borrowed from her father just right. It was white and purple and was a really nice-looking robe. I didn't see a belt, though, and I wasn't sure how to stop it from popping open at dinner. We were getting ready to attend a banquet at the palace, a royal feast for an ally of the garden, and her father had lent it to me so that I would look a little more respectable. Your clothes are certainly interesting, boy, but we have to get you some finery if you're going to sit with the queen and the other counselors. Glimmer had held her brittle smile until we were alone in the guest room of her parents' house, a snug and spacious cave on the 3rd tier, before she broke down.
You still should have told me.
Glimmer, I started, but she cut me off.
No, by the goddess, you should have asked me to come with you. I'm a warrior. I would have been of help to you. I could have been of help to you. I should have been in that battle. The hunters should have assembled. When the queen and her personal ward returned with stories of combat, I seated. They spoke of crossing swords with an enemy as powerful as the Green Men and of the alias who had been at their side. I should have known it was you and your grandfather. I should have been there. If you had called me, I would have been there too.
Glim, how was I supposed to do that?
You...
She started, but stopped as she realized it too. You don't have a phone or anything. If you weren't in the area that night, then you would have never heard me calling you. Grandpa didn't exactly tell me we were heading into battle either. He told me we were getting ready, and away we went. There was no time for preparation or anything. We didn't know what we were getting into, not till we were there. Glimmer pursed her lips, thinking that over as I found the ties inside the robe and figured out how to not embarrass myself in front of royalty.
That makes sense, I suppose. But why not tell me when you returned? I'm your companion. You should want to share these things with me.
I did, I told her, coming to sit beside her on the bed that felt like it was stuffed with moss. But Grandpa said you'd worry, and I didn't want you to worry. I haven't seen a lot of you since Christmas either. The weather's been bad, I understand that, but before you arrived on the porch, I hadn't seen you in a month. When did I have a chance to tell you? Glimmer scuffed her bare feet on the floor, a sound that was like stones coming together.
It has been a trying year. The snow made it hard to get food sometimes, and the hunters came back with nothing on occasion. That was, originally, why my father decided to formalize my betrothal to Grantier. He wanted to negotiate a trade agreement with the northern camps, and marrying the best hunter to one of the chieftain's sons seemed a good way to do it. I may have gotten a little heated when he suggested. I know Grantier was our guest, and have been for most of my life, but I didn't know that was the reason behind it. Finally, my father conceded, and my younger sister was betrothed to him instead. She is only a few years younger than I, so it isn't that much of a difference in age, but Grantier had become quite attached to me. He has set his mind on the idea we would be married, and when my father put forward my sister instead, a scribe and not a hunter, he went to the council to... what would be the word? Press me into betrothal? That's not exactly it, but it's close. He wanted to make me marry him, hence my current hostility towards him. I ended up having to challenge him to combat in order to prove my case before the goddess.
Wait, you fought Grantier?
I did. I won too. Some days, I wish I hadn't sparred him though. He agreed to the union between he and my sister, and has been insufferable ever since. That is why I haven't visited in a while. I, too, have had things come up that I should have told you about.
I slid my hand into hers, and she squeezed my fingers back after a moment. Sounds like we both have a lot to talk about when this is all over. She smiled and laid her head on my shoulder. Her hair was soft as it tickled my nose.
Who knew I was betrothed such a powerful warrior? I hope you will still want to join with that lovely hunter,
she said, trying for a joke, but sounding hurt still. I lifted her face so she could see my eyes. Only if you don't mind being joined with a lowly college dropout, I said.
I need to get ready for the banquet. Can you occupy yourself while I'm gone?
I thought about it before nodding. I believe I can.
Good.
She kissed my nose before heading out to her own room to get ready. I was looking at myself in the mirror, making sure I had everything just right, when a deep male voice came from behind me. "It looks good on you." I turned to find the very severe-looking elf from the presentation standing in my doorway. He was smiling now, but he still held an air of discomfort. Why wouldn't he, I thought? I was a relative unknown who was coming to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. Wizard in the Queen's good favor or not, he was still a father, and I was probably overdue for a good shotgun cleaning talk. Except... He stepped closer and adjusted something around the neckline. "There, that's perfect. We haven't been introduced yet. I am Tantalus of Clan Marsofic." We exchanged introductions, Tantalus struggling with my name at first and helping me perfect the pronunciation of his clan name so I didn't make a fool of myself later. Then we just stood there, looking awkward, as we tried to decide what to do next. "I've heard tale of your bravery in the gardens. I feel that..." He paused, trying to find the words. "I know you better by the tales my daughter has told me about you and your elder. She tells me that you faced a bone collector before you had fully come into your power. No small feat. How long have you been studying the arts?" I had to suppress a smile. His description made it sound like I was a classically trained actor rather than a fledgling magus. "Honestly, about a year and a half, sir." Tantalus raised an eyebrow. "And you both stood against the Green Man? I cannot tell if you are very brave or very foolish. I will assume it is the former. Your teacher must be very gifted." I nodded. Gramps has been through a lot. I think in some ways he's trying to teach me as much as he can, as fast as he can. It was the first time I had vocalized something like that, and I realized I believed it, but I didn't understand it. Why was Gramps so hell-bent on making me ready? What was he making me ready for? I didn't know, but I thought I knew. What I thought I knew was too painful to think about, however, so I set it aside. It was just a thought, after all. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus. Are you a hunter, a gatherer? Clearly you're becoming a great sage, but what else is there to you?" I licked my lips, racking my brain for something, but finding nothing that might impress my future father-in-law. "I'm a simple man, sir. I haven't always been such an aspiring sage. I dropped out of college, and I haven't had a job in nearly 2 years, but I'm trying to be better. I work the land, I learn from my elders, I collect the stories of my teacher so that those who come after me can know him through those stories. I cannot promise anything as grand as this for your daughter when we join together, but I can promise that my love for her will never wane, and that I will protect her, as well as she protects me." Tantalus nodded, scratching his chin as he digested what I had said. "That is all any father wants for his daughter, for her to be safe and loved. I never felt good about using her the way I did. When the idea was put forward, I decided that a match like that would be as good for her as it would be for us. I thought Aurelia would like having a partner to hunt with, someone to guard her and give her strong children. I failed to see that she was capable of choosing such a person for herself. I'm glad that she was able to remind me in time." I shrugged, a gesture he didn't seem to understand. "You wanted to do right by her. I don't see why anyone would find fault with that." Tantalus shook my hand again, clapping me on the back as he invited me into the outer room. "Come meet the rest of my clan. They will soon be your clan as well, and they are eager to know you." They were all sitting on overstuffed cushions when I came in, and I half expected to see a TV somewhere in the room. Instead, there was a large stone fireplace and shelves upon shelves of books. The space was lit by 7 fungi at the top of the room, and rather than being dank, it was surprisingly cozy. Glimmer had 3 sisters, it appeared, and a mother whom she favored a lot. Tantalus introduced me to Cline, Risha, and Firsta, their ages progressively younger. They all had the silver hair of their patron, though a few of them bore the darker streaks of their mother's raven hair. His wife, Irina, welcomed me warmly, and when the introductions were done, the youngest of them, still 40 years my senior, asked if I could really do magic. I can, I told her, taking a seat on the surprisingly soft cushion that Tantalus offered me. Can you show us some? Firsta asked. Firsta, her mother chided. It is rude to ask a guest such. I don't mind, I said, glad to be able to show my art to someone. Grandpa had warned me about showing it off in front of normal people. He had said something about it being dangerous, especially in the more religious hollers, and I'd felt like a leper as I went about my day-to-day life in hiding. Showing off a little to a group of soon-to-be cryptid in-laws, however, seemed safe enough. Closing my eyes and exhaling, I snapped my fingers and made a Bic's worth of regular fire. I was grateful that Grandpa had showed me how recently, and even more grateful that I could manage it with only a little prep work. Feeling bold, I brought my other 4 fingers to my thumb and lit them on fire too. The group marveled at the trick, and I wondered if anyone in the camp could use magic. This was little more than a parlor trick, but they all seemed pretty impressed. I suppose it could be useful if you'd forgotten your flint and tinder, came a derisive voice from the doorway. The flames went out as my concentration wavered, and Granthier swaggered in with a smirk. Granthier, you are a guest in my home, as he is, so I will ask you not to belittle our guests while here. Granthier ignored him. What else can you do, wizard? What other tricks do you possess? By the way he said tricks, I knew he meant it as an insult. I have wards to protect me from certain creatures of the forest, runes to make myself and other things harder to locate, sigils that let creatures know where my territory is. Do you possess anything that's actually useful, or is it all glamour? Granthier, Tantalus warned, but I put out a hand. I was tired of this guy trying to bait me, and I was tempted to show him the 38 I had in my bag. Smithicus Wessicus. Catch that, why don't you? I can manipulate air currents to create a shield and a column of force. Shields. And what can you stop with them? Softballs, snowballs, the occasional pawpaw that Grandpa hurls at me, which I did not say. Whatever I need to stop, I said, assuming that would be the end of it. Let's see then, Granther said, and he was reaching for his belt before anyone could register it. I saw his hand flick out, and if I'd been a second slower, I would have missed the banquet. Maybe the next few decades or so of life as well. The glimmering shield was in front of me in a second, something I'd been practicing after the battle, and the tip of the dagger was still on the wrong side of the shield. The middle was caught fast in the midst of the current, and the 3 sisters gasped in unison when they finally noticed the hilt sticking out and vibrating slightly. Tantalus did not gasp. Tantalus was furious. Granthier, how dare you—
Granthier Susafir, you dare bear weapons in my father's house against my betrothed and the guest of the Queen of Moons. Had you drawn blood under this roof, the consequences for you and my father could have been dire. You're lucky my beloved is so capable.
I turned to look at Glimmer, and her fury had not diminished her beauty in the slightest. She was wearing a long dress of deep forest green, the fabric looking incredibly soft if I were to touch it. She had her hair up, a braid over one shoulder as opposed to down her back, and her feet were hidden beneath the long flow of her dress. She was beautiful and terrifying as she stared daggers at Granthier. Tantalus told us to go along to the banquet, and we left as he took Granthier by the arm and led him off somewhere else. He was speaking to him in a raised voice as we left, Rena assuring us that they would be on their way momentarily.
He makes me so mad. He won't leave, despite his business being completed, and he insists on being antagonistic to a fault.
I looped my arm through hers, and it seemed to give her the same strength I found in the forest. Don't think about him. Tonight, it's all about us. She leaned her head against my shoulder as we walked, the guards stepping aside to let us through. The banquet wasn't a huge event, but it was still the grandest thing I had ever seen. The table where we sat was long enough for all 30 attendants to sit comfortably, and the food was exquisite. There was venison, various roots and fungi dishes, pastries, fruits, wild vegetables, some other things I didn't really recognize. Glimmer had assured me that moon elves had the same dietary restrictions as humans, for the most part, so everything would be safe to eat. There was music and dancing, and the wine was strong and rich, and plentiful. Clan Marsofic arrived not long after the second course. Tantalus in his robe of office, and his daughters and wife in various shades of green. Granther came with them, and some of the starch appeared to have been taken out of his sails. He offered me an apology, and I mostly believed it. He sat beside Clinny, the two looking uncomfortable, and as course after course came out, the talk came nearly as freely as the wine. "We have all heard about your exploits on the battlefield, Magus. Is it true that you shot fire from your hand and killed one of the Green Man's champions?" "Well, it wasn't really me, per se. They say you conjured a shield to save the lives of many. How did you manage such a thing?" It's mostly about concentration. You form your will into a solid barrier, and your betrothed had told some of the other hunters you laid a bone collector to rest. How did you manage such a task?" "Well, the wards did most of the work. My grandpa and I, they just kept filling my cup while I talked, telling me almost as many tales as Grandpa. The wine caught up with me, though, and soon it was hard to keep my head from spinning. The elves were drinking it like water, and it was easily the strongest alcohol I'd ever had. I was trying to keep myself from slurring as I told them tales of spirits and creatures, but soon I found myself in Glimmer's arms as we danced in a dizzying circle. Strangely, I felt no urge to be sick, something that sometimes happens when I drank too much. It seemed the elf wine was different in other ways, too.
You're the life of the party, Hunter. They all love your stories, and you seem to have won over everyone.
"Not everyone," I said, looking over her shoulder and meeting eyes with Granther. He was glowering at me, his cup refilling almost as often as mine. Clinny was dancing with someone as we all moved in time, but he seemed not to notice. He had eyes only for Glimmer and I realized that the apology had likely been for Tantalus's benefit more than mine.
Ignore him. He means nothing, as does his anger. My father told me the two of you had a nice talk earlier. He is quite taken with you. He is something for a scholar himself, and has much respect for men of letters.
"I like him too," I confided. "He seems like a good guy, though I'm guessing he can be serious when he needs to." She nodded.
He was always telling stories of my sisters and I when we were young. A lot of them were what he called human tales, that mostly made you all sound like monsters. When I met your grandfather, I think he thought I had made him up. It wasn't until I kept talking about him that he realized I had met a real human. I realized that you weren't the monsters he had made me think you were. You were like us, and that made all this possible.
As the song ended, the two of us spreading to the end of our joined hands, I felt a burning sense of contentment. It was tempered, though, by a sudden need elsewhere. I need to use the bathroom," I slurred a little, looking around. Where do I go for that?"
Leave it to you to know just what a girl wants to hear. There's a room of the main hall where people go do that, ask an attendant, and they will show you.
tried not to run as I left the banquet hall, asking a tall elf in a white and green robe about a bathroom. He didn't seem to know what that was, but when I covertly clutched my nethers and told him I needed to make water, something Grandpa had said plenty of times, he seemed to get it. He pointed down the hall and off to the left, and I hurriedly went looking. What I found was a little room full of pots on metal stands. There were about a dozen of them, and from the smell, it was clear that they waited to empty them until they were full. "All this, and they haven't figured out indoor plumbing?" I said, shaking my head. I probably filled the pot enough for some poor attendant to have to take it out, and I was just finishing up as I heard the door open on the little bathroom alcove. "Occupied, or whatever," I said, wondering if the pots were communal. With so many, I guessed they would have to be, but the last thing I wanted was to turn around and see some old elf with his robe open or his leathers down and doing his business. The footsteps seemed a little unsure of themselves as they closed the door, and when I heard them coming towards the place where I was, I sighed deeply. Whether it was urinals or brass pots, there was always some guy who wanted to stand right next to you while you went. "Hey, I don't know how it works here, but if you give me a minute, you can have this spot if that's what you want." I stopped talking as the tip of a dagger came to rest against the small of my back. "Don't talk. Don't say a moon's damned word. You and I are going somewhere for a private chat. The last chat you may ever have on this side of the veil." You're still here. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's spooky tale. If you'd like a little bit more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that appears at the end of our story, or maybe head on over to one of our playlists where you can get your fill of spooky content. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, I've got a new book that's come out. If you'd like your own copy, there's a link below in the description where you can get your own copy of my spooky book. If you like what you see here on the channel and think you might like to support in a more monetized way, then why not come over to Patreon or become a member on YouTube? Speaking of, let's go ahead and thank our members now. Thanks to Civ Garstad, Unicorn Hollow, and Army Dude for being our spooky ghost contributors. Thanks to Janet, Lee Kendall, Saikat, Ronda J, Sue Casper, and Valinator for being our spooky skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, and Queen Sheebah for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. And a big thanks to Scott Donahue for being our Ghostly Writer tier contributor. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the channel, then come on down to Patreon or become a member on YouTube. Spooky Skeleton tier contributors, that's our $5 tier, get their spooky 12 hours early at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. my time, of course. And while Ghostly Reading is only a tier that's available on Patreon, you get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one on your doorstep in, hopefully, a timely manner. If you'd like a book, we have many on Amazon. I've got links below if you'd like to follow those. Should get you to my page so you can buy any one of my 8 books I believe we're up to now. I'm sure they'd look really nice on your shelf, and I'll sign them for you if you can find me out in the wild. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.